Osgood. Welcome to the Osgood Assisted Living for Old Labs. Let me say I've always had dogs. Always had dogs, and other animals as well. I'm generally an animal lover, but mostly dogs. And for a while, when I was working, I wasn't in a place where I could have dogs. But when I moved into this house 20 years ago, that was the first thing I wanted, was to get a dog. And I also had been struggling a lot with depression. And I thought it would be really nice to have a dog for companionship. In fact, I had been recently diagnosed as being manic depressive, bipolar. And that was my reason, really, for getting my first dog, to be a companion to me. When I wanted a dog, I was working full-time, and I wrote to Lrcp, and I said, I'm working full-time. Do you think it would be appropriate for me to get a dog? And the response was, of course you could get a dog. It would be a good idea to get an older dog that's perfectly happy to hang out in the house. And that's what I did. Moody was 7 when I adopted him. And after that, I continued to adopt older and older dogs, but they were all around 7 or 8. And then, as I became involved in Lrcp, it became very clear to me that there were a lot of old dogs that were being dumped in shelters for horrible reasons. Many times simply because their owners didn't want them anymore. They were old. They just didn't want to be bothered with them. And maybe they didn't say that. They might have an excuse like, we're moving and we can't take them with us. But you knew what the real reason was. And many of these dogs, the people had acquired as puppies. They'd had them all their lives, and they ended up taking them to the shelter. And it was just tragic. Old dogs don't do well in the shelter. They die very quickly. Nobody wants them, and it just broke my heart. And as time went by, I just got more and more involved in the older dogs, until now Lrcp calls me the old lab lady because I'm so passionate about these old labs. And as a result of being so passionate about these old labs, I have gotten involved in being an adoption coordinator for Lrcp. And every time I see an application from someone who is interested in an older lab, I say, I'm taking that one. And I make sure that my old labs that I feel very proprietary about go to the very best home they can go to. And the best part of this is there are wonderful people who do want to adopt old labs and will give great homes to them. So it's not an impossible task at all. It's really a very rewarding task. Well, you know, when you have old labs, one of the things you have to accept is that you don't have them as long as you would have a lab that you adopt as a puppy. And somehow I've been able to deal with the fact that I don't have them as long. I know people say to me, how can you possibly take these labs and go through losing them over and over again? And I don't know why I'm able to do that. I think because I can say to myself, if I didn't take these dogs, if I didn't give them a lot of love and give them a good home for the last years of their lives, they die in the shelter. And the price that I have to pay for that is not having them very long and having to say goodbye. My way of course I remember them all, but my way of remembering them is my memorial wall. And rather than saving ashes, which I just don't do, I instead have a wall with each one of my dogs has a framed picture with the date that I adopted it and the date that it went to the bridge, as we say. And then also I find a quotation, either from literature or from somewhere, that I think is particularly appropriate for that dog. And that's my memorial wall, and that's where all of my babies are, on my memorial wall. And I walk by it many, many times a day, and that's how I